You're watching Anewz tonight. I'm Guy Schoen. Well, after Donald Trump's historic win in the US presidential election, tonight we examine the impact both in the United States and internationally. First, Simon Marks reports from Washington, D.C.
No sooner had Vice President Kamala Harris's concession speech ended here in Washington, D.C., than the opening salvos were fired in the recriminations that are going to take place within the Democratic Party about the scale of its loss. Bernie Sanders, the left-wing senator from Vermont, issued a statement saying that a party that had abandoned the interests of the working class should not be surprised that the working class had abandoned it. And certainly the party is reeling from the electorate's full-scale repudiation, not just of its presidential candidate, but of down-ballot candidates, including many of those running for seats in the House of Representatives and the United States Senate. With Donald Trump about to get his hands around the White House again, the Republicans also now aware that they're going to have from January a majority in the Senate and almost certainly a majority in the House of Representatives. The way is going to be open for Donald Trump to create the American government that he and his top lieutenants within the Make America Great Again movement have always coveted. They will be able to get almost anything done that they want to do, given the size of the president's expected backing in the Senate, in the House of Representatives, and of course given the 6-3 majority that Republican appointees enjoy in the United States Supreme Court. All eyes are now on the positions that Donald Trump has to fill within his government. Is he going to turn to far-right figures like the former US ambassador to Germany, Rick Grenell, for example, hotly tipped as a possible future Secretary of State? Mike Pompeo, Donald Trump's former Secretary of State, now tipped for a role possibly as Defense Secretary. And then there's the question of Elon Musk. Might he be appointed to Donald Trump's cabinet? In order to sit in it, he would have to divest himself of his business interests, but he would undoubtedly secure Senate support, and certainly Donald Trump was effusive in his praise of Elon Musk during his victory speech in the early hours of Wednesday morning. Massive questions ahead for the future of the Democratic Party and also for the future of the United States. Simon Marks for Anewz in Washington.
Well, joining us in the studio to assess the impact are our very own Anastasia Lavrina and Orkan Amashov. Thank you for joining us in the studio. Well, Trump's victory, Anastasia, it surprised some people, but he has had a lot of support in his own country, but also in countries right across the world. The support seems to be really stronger now than it has been for many years.
Indeed. A lot of expectations from Donald Trump. He comes to the White House and everybody is expecting him to contribute to the end of the war, not only between Russia and Ukraine, but also around the situation in the Middle East. And now we can read a lot of notes from the newspapers when there is stated that Palestinians somehow fear the Trump's administration, that they may think he will provide more support to Israeli side. But as in my understanding of the situation, Trump is indeed willing to end the war, as he will get more privilege for himself and for his country if the war ends. However, not all experts in Israel think the same. Previously, I had the chance to talk with Michael Finkel, who is a political scientist from Israel, and he has very, let's say, strong expectations from the United States, saying that US may decide to support Israel with all possible means, including weapons, money, and other things that will help assist Israel to win the war. And I offer now to listen the comment of Michael.
Well, ending the war does not mean keeping the terrorists of Hamas in Gaza. Hamas is considered a terrorist organization in the United States, in EU, in Israel, in Australia, Japan, Korea, almost all over the world. So ending the war means ending the brutal and ruthless regime of Hamas in Gaza that didn't only take hostages from Israel, but also took hostages their own people, the Palestinian Arabs. So removing this regime, placing the normal, civil Arab administration that would help people of Gaza prosper. That means ending the war. The same thing for Lebanon. there's this terrorist organization, Hezbollah, which is a puppet of Iran, which is like a cancerous growth taking over Lebanon. Hezbollah recently was stronger than regular Lebanese army. So ending the war there would mean to remove Hezbollah from Lebanon, to weaken Hezbollah, not to allow Hezbollah to dominate. And the same thing regarding Iran. Ending the war would mean not to allow Iranian regime to bomb Israel. They bombed Israel twice this year with huge amount of ballistic missiles and drones. And ending the war means never ever to allow the Iranian regime of Ayatollah to obtain nuclear weapons. We will not allow this to happen. We'll eliminate all chances of that. No negotiations with terrorists. This is point number one. Terrorists either surrender or they're killed. We don't talk with Nazis. We don't talk with terrorists. Point number one. So no negotiations with Hamas. They'll be destroyed and killed. Those don't surrender. No negotiations with Hezbollah. I mean, yesterday, the leader of Hezbollah, who is hiding in Iran, gave a speech, and he said, we will never, ever sign a peace treaty with Israel. We'll continue to kill Israelis. Over 100,000 Israeli citizens are displaced, removed. They're now being held for over a year already in the hotels in the center of Israel because their houses are under constant bombardment by Hezbollah. With whom to negotiate? With terrorists? Never, ever. They will be destroyed. Iran is alone. Which world war? Who will defend Iran? Is there one country that wants to defend Iran? Even Syria distances itself from Iran. Iran is in absolute loneliness. The Arab states of Persian Gulf hate Iran. They're afraid of Iran. They have military and intelligence pacts with Israel and with NATO countries. There is no chance for a world war because who will be on the other side? On our side, on the side of Israel, we have United States, we have all NATO bloc, we have Britain, EU, we have all civilized countries. And who is with Iran? Oh, I'm sorry, maybe Yemen. But Yemen is a quasi country. The regime over there is a terrorist regime that shoots at the civil ships that transport oil or transport merchandise in the sea. And this is not even a country. So who will be with them? Which world war? There's not a chance of world war. No, everything will be good. The country number one in the world that receives most aid, both in money and in weapons, this is Israel. It's not Ukraine. And it will continue to be so. I don't see any difficulty with the United States continuing to do what it does and what it says fit. But what I think and foresee will happen is that President Trump will likely end the conflict in Ukraine. He's going to bring the sides to end the war. So I foresee in 2025 that the war in Ukraine will end. This is for sure. But the conflicts in Middle East cannot end so fast. The war's here to end, and they will be ended. Iran threatened the United States a week ago. They also threatened United States military bases in the region and United States economic interests. This is not a joke. This is not a joke. So I think they're going to get it. They're going to get for it. They're going to get a very big punishment.
Well, some pretty clear and strong views there, but obviously there's another side to this story, right?
Right, of course, especially because according to Mikhail Fenko, United States may decide even to enter into the war with Iran if it's needed. But talking to another expert, the former U.S. ambassador to Azerbaijan, Matthew Bryza, he thinks that United States may decide to bring more negotiations to the regions to put at the table Israel and other sides to achieve the consensus. So now we can listen to the opinion of our another expert too.
Well, Trump's approach to the Middle East overall, I think, is going to be to try to extend the Abraham Accords, which you'll recall at the end of his previous administration, led to Israel normalizing its relations with several Arab states. So with Bahrain, with Morocco, with UAE, and with Sudan. I think that was the last one. And so the jewel in the crown will be to normalize Israel's relations with Saudi Arabia. And that negotiation has been going on for over a year. It was put on hold when Hamas brutally attacked Israeli civilians on October 7th, and then when Israel brutally attacked Gaza. But the negotiations have continued. So Trump will want to finalize that. He really cares about Saudi Arabia. But the trick or the challenge is that King Mohammed bin Salman or Crown Prince, sorry, Mohammed bin Salman, has said that while Saudi Arabia wants to move ahead with normalizing relations with Israel, and then getting an agreement with the United States on nuclear technology, as well as a defense pledge from the United States, sort of like, it sounds like, maybe like Article 5 of the North Atlantic Treaty that obligates the United States to come to militarily to Saudi Arabia's aid if Saudi Arabia is attacked. But that's all on hold. At first, until, as Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman said at first, he said, there is a path toward a two-state solution for the Palestinians that can't be derailed. Now, he's lately been saying there must be a two-state solution in place before Saudi Arabia will normalize relations with Israel. So that makes Trump's approach impossible. There won't be normalized Israel-Saudi relations if there's no two-state solution. And as Trump has made clear from the beginning of his previous administration, he doesn't believe a two-state solution is necessary. Trump supports Netanyahu. They're very close. Netanyahu is doing everything possible to push the Palestinians out of Israel, it seems, and have a one-state solution. So those two primary goals of Donald Trump in the Middle East are in conflict. I think there's no doubt he'll continue military assistance, as has been the tradition for the United States to Israel since the 1970s. And since the Camp David Accords, I should say, so late 1970s. Otherwise, in the Middle East, it's unclear how he'll deal with Iran. You remember in his previous administration, he had a policy of maximum pressure on Iran on sanctions. He withdrew from the so-called Iran nuclear deal, the JCPOA, and there's no chance he's going to go back to that nuclear deal. So I'd anticipate confrontation between the U.S. and Iran, but not militarily. My last point is you'll also recall that I guess it was in 2019 when there was an Iranian or /Houthi missile and drone attack on Saudi Arabia's big oil processing facilities in the east of Saudi Arabia. Trump talked about military response and did nothing militarily. So he doesn't have a systematic approach to the Middle East. I think he just looks for opportunities. And I think he wants to cut a deal that could end the war. He said he wants to end the war in Gaza. But I think Netanyahu is going to keep on pushing to keep on killing as much of Hamas as possible. And I think that the Palestinians are not going to agree to anything other than a two-state solution, politically, so the conflict will continue.
And Orkan, impact across the world in many different regions, not least Central Asia, which is a region that doesn't often get picked up in the analysis of the impact of a US general election. But of course, Central Asia also a place feeling some form of impact.
Yeah, of course, Guy. So the impact of Trump's re-election has been felt everywhere, not just in the United States, also in Europe, and also in Central Asia. I think the key dominant sensibility there is that this re-election means both risks and opportunities, and the question of recalibration. There's a degree of uncertainty associated with his personality, of course, and I think that element was very central to all of the deliberations that I heard when I was talking to my colleagues from Central Asia. But Central Asia is very important on its own right, to be honest with you. Its importance is increasing, and particularly in the context of the latest Bishkek Declaration signed on the 6th of November 2024. And that document could be described as a new constitutional charter of this organization. We also need to reflect on the adoption of a new flag. So geopolitical clout is increasing, and also you see the engagement of OTS with African Union, with Afghanistan. So it's becoming something bigger than it was originally meant. Actually, earlier I spoke to Anewz Bayrakli. He's the head of the political science department at Turkish German University. Let's hear, and he said something very interesting, and it'll be very interesting to hear.
Of course, this middle corridor is an important trade route which connects China with Central Asia and Europe. And of course, when one thinks about this middle corridor, of course, historically speaking, there was, of course, this Silk Road, which has also benefited most of the countries in this region. Actually, the richnesses of the Asian countries at that time in Central Asia, but also in today's Turkey, came from the trade from this Silk Road. And only after there were new trade routes that we have seen a decline in those areas. So that a renewal or revival of these old trade routes is, I think, will benefit everybody. The European Union is, of course, has a very heavy, let's say, weight in international relations, especially in its economic aspects. So the cooperation between Turkic states and the European Union is, of course, important. And also Turkey has quite a lot of experience with the European Union. Turkey is a member of Customs Union, and Turkey has been a member for about 50 years, or not a member, but a candidate country for the European Union. So European Union has its integration is quite developed. It's actually one of the most successful regional, let's say, unions that have been established all around the world. There are different examples, African Union and others, but European Union is the most developed one, and I think Turkic states can learn also from European Union and and from European Union's integration experience, let's say. But also economic ties, political ties are important because we are entering turbulent times in international politics. The conflicts and the crises all around the world are rising, and to manage this crisis, one needs cooperation from between different actors, and of course, European Union can also help Turkic states to manage those crises in Central Asia and beyond. Well, I mean, we will see, I think, in the future that it will play a much bigger role in international politics. Once this integration, I mean, the foundations of this integration and cooperation has been established, we will see that it will play a bigger role because it has a huge potential. Turkic states, in terms of economy, in terms of geography, but also population, and plus it has really rich hydrocarbon resources, which is also quite important in many areas in today's economies of the also advanced countries. So I think once in the coming future, let's say in the short term, we will see that organization of Turkic states will be building ties with different actors, not only with the African Union, but also with the others, European Union and the others. And its role will be much bigger than today. I think when we, in the next decade or so, we will be talking more and more about this organization. There is already cooperation, especially between Turkey and some member states, especially in the area of defense industries, because Turkey has some experience in this field, producing nowadays a lot of defense equipment indigenously in Turkey, and Turkey is quite ready to share this know-how with allied countries. And of course, Turkic states, they are also an ally of Turkey, but beyond that, of course, we have common cultural and linguistic ties. So Turkey is ready to share this knowledge with these countries, and it's already happening. But beyond that, of course, foreign and security policy is an area in which the cooperation is quite difficult. Of course, each one of the member countries, they have their own foreign policy agenda and the national interests. And of course, this is difficult to combine all this together. And when we look at the European Union, although it's very successful integration process, the only area that the European Union, we can say, failed so far is the common foreign and security policy. It will take more time, but we can say that the defense industries, the cooperation in those areas, will be much more successful in the short term, and then afterwards, after this, we can see maybe cooperation in foreign policy area as well. Well, Afghanistan is geopolitically speaking is a very important country in the midst of the Central Asia. It plays a huge role, and it has been. It was subject to invasions and occupations and wars in the last 40-50 years. And of course, a stable Afghanistan is in the interest of all the member states, I think, because if Afghanistan is destabilized, then it can create lots of problems, security problems for those countries. So a stable Afghanistan is, I think, in the interest of the Turkic countries, and that's why I think this has been this group, working group, has been established.
So as we may notice, the importance of the organization is immense. It's going to increase. So when you talk to experts from Turkey, you see special emphasis on geopolitics. But when you talk to the experts from Central Asia, you see the economic factor is more central there. And earlier I spoke to Ersultan Janseyitov, expert from Kazakhstan, and it would be very interesting to hear his reflections on this subject as well.
Talking about the integration, of course, it is number one goal for every OTS country, and especially for Kazakhstan, is economics. So the overall integration is built on the economic basement. So one of the most important agreements, in my point of view, is the agreement on digital cooperation. Since we know that the basement, like the foundation of the integration within OTS countries is logistics. Since our countries are located between China and Europe, so we are perfectly positioned in the middle of Eurasia. And the main topic here is, of course, the middle corridor that goes through the Caspian Sea and connects Central Asia with South Caucasus and further Turkey. So the main agreements are regarding to logistics. So if our OTS countries will be cooperating deeply on digital transformations, so we can make many processes much more easy, and the logistics will be working more smoothly. So I think this is the main part about the signed agreements, in my point of view, in the economic perspective. We can see that Central Asia, especially Central Asia, is becoming the crossroads for valuable and core transport corridors that go through all the continents. Since the situation in Eastern Europe, our region is becoming more and more important. So different trade corridors, like different logistical corridors, they should be all interconnected with each other, and it's much better for all the Turkic states to coordinate all the logistics within each other. Of course, the middle corridor will be the main topic, since it connects South Caucasus and Central Asia, as we said before. But at the same time, we have different logistical corridors within Central Asia itself. So it will be much more beneficial for everyone to coordinate within each other.
So how is news of Trump's victory being seen in Iran? Well, joining us now is the political analyst Turaj Shiralilo, joining us from Tehran. Turaj, thank you very much for joining us on the show. I'd like to start by asking you about Trump's future trajectory. How do you see bilateral relations between Iran and the US. Will the Trump of the past reflect the Trump of the future, do you think?
Officially, what the Iranian officials have commented in the past days and after re-election of Mr. Trump, they have said that they are not expecting too much out of his re-election. Basically speaking, it seems that the same trajectory will continue as Iranian officials have so far commented. Speaking, I'm going to quote a government spokeswoman who commented on that, and also the Iranian foreign minister who commented on a possible, at that time, on the possible re-election of Mr. Trump a few nights back on a TV show. So this is what is going to be expected trajectory. In Iran, I don't think that Iranian officials are thinking highly of Trump too, if you can use that term for him, because both have already tried each other. Don't forget that Mr. Trump was in office for 4 years, and during his term in office, he moved back from the nuclear agreement with Iran, and also he imposed the harshest possible sanctions on Iranian economy. And not to forget that he ordered killing of a top, or I can say the highest Iranian general who was involved in the anti-terrorism, anti-Daesh, or ISL, as you may call it, and he also ordered killing and murdering of Iranian top general. So this is against this backdrop that Mr. Trump is coming to office again. And as Iranian officials have commented, nothing big is going to happen after his re-election. But we shouldn't forget that Iran-US history, which in the 50s, 60s, and 70s were close allies, and after Islamic Revolution in Iran in 1979, the relations turned very dark and sour. In recent past, it has not been as dark as we can imagine. For example, look what happened when the Taliban wanted to capture Afghanistan, and there was the Northern Alliance. Iran and US were cooperating, of course not directly, how to stop Taliban to take over Afghanistan. And they managed for some time, of course. And on a softer aspect, just see how Iran and United States cooperated to keep the wrestling matches on the agenda of Olympic Games. So it was with the joint cooperation of Iran, of course, some other countries, as well as the United States, that they managed to keep wrestling games on Olympics matches. So it is not all I should say, a dark picture. I'm not going to draw you a gloomy picture, not a rosy picture. What is realistic, or is going to be realistic, is that what kind of, I should say, strategist or aides Mr. Trump, let's say Trump 2, is going to select or elect at his close aides. Whether these people are going to be the same neocons who governed the White House when he was in office, or as he has shown by bringing in a new and a younger vice president, whether he is going to bring in a sort of multilateral, I should say, aides or close aides to his team. If that is going to happen, I think some aspects of these Trump 1 tenure or in office with Iran will change. I'm not saying that they are going to have close cooperation, but perhaps with some new aspects of cooperation opening in Iran. We shouldn't forget that a new government is in office in Tehran for the past I should say 4 months, because President Pezeshkian also marked his 100th day in office last week, I think. So with this new office, with this new president in Iran, as well as a new president in the United States, there are some possibilities that there would be a change of trajectory, not as we had in Trump 1 period. And we shouldn't forget that Iran is not the only problem that President-elect Trump is facing. In the broader picture in the region, Middle East is a bigger problem. What is going now with the Israeli-Palestinian, Israeli-Lebanese conflicts, Israeli-Syrian conflicts. On a wider project, again, or wider picture, the war between Ukraine and Russia is another headache for him and for his team. And a broken European Union and the future of NATO. And as you know, United States moved back from the Paris Agreement, and again during Mr. Biden's office rejoined the agreement. Competition with China, and on the domestic agenda, fighting immigration. The problem is going to have with Mexico. So what I'm going to say is that whether if Mr. Trump is going to bring more, in a sense, to use the better word for that, multilateralist team who will not deal with the world or not work as an isolationist policies that he used to have when he was in office some 5, 6, 8 years ago, there is the possibility that a new relation with Iran is in the offing, and also with the new government in Iran. And sorry, I went to some details because Iran-U.S. relationship is so complicated, so complex, that you can't answer such a big question in 2, 3, 5 sentences. It needs some backgrounding and also some foregrounding to bring you what was in the past and what is now, and what we can discuss what is going to happen in future. So to answer your question briefly, if Mr. and his team are going to continue the same old policies or Trump 1 period policies, the same trajectory will continue. But if they are sort of multilateralist people who are not so much investing on unilateralist policies, and as past showed us that Iran and U.S. can cooperate in some regional issues, there is the possibility that they would step ahead for some sort of limited cooperation, which is, of course, all depending on how he will select his close aides, National Security Advisor, State Secretary, as well as his close aides.
If to move beyond the bilateral relations, what this re-election means for the wider situation in the Middle East, because during his first term, Trump was incredibly supportive of Israel, and that, in a sense, exacerbated Iranian-Israeli tensions. What do you expect in the context of wider confrontation between Iran and Israel from the perspective of Trump's second term?
Yes, we all remember that Mr. Trump moved U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Also, he recognized Israel's occupation of Golan Heights, and this exacerbated his pictures, I should say, the negative image he used to have among Arab countries, Arab states, Arab nations. And Iran is not an Arab nation, but a Muslim country, and it had the same negative effect on the Iranian mindset, how he was acting. I don't think that President Trump is going to change everything at night. Well, his rhetoric, in a way, very strong rhetoric or boasting, he said that, saying that if I come to office, as soon as I step to office, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict shall be settled in 1 day, 24 hours. Ukraine-Russia war shall be settled in 1 day. And that's the way, that's his signature way of talking and looking at the things. I don't think that is as easy as he is putting it, because it is not only as an Iran-Israel or Palestine-Israel issue. It is an issue in the Middle East, as you said, the wider picture. And I don't think that that is going to be settled in a few months, although he's going to use his friendly relations, perhaps his friendly pressure on Israeli officials as well. But as he has said that he will put U.S. first for his big motto, saying that make America again, and for that make America great again, he needs to put U.S. first before everything. I think he will start pushing pressure on both sides of the conflict, not only Iran and Israel, but also Arabs and Israel, Arab states and Israeli officials, and at the same time try to make this as an achievement, to score as an achievement with his government, perhaps by end of 2025. He will work hard for that because he needs that. And we shouldn't forget, again, as you remember, during the presidency of Mr. Obama, there was this grand strategy of pivot to Asia and pivot from Middle East. Of course, that was a democratic policy, democratic grand strategy. We need to wait and see what is Mr. Trump's, or what is going to be Mr. Trump's grand strategy regarding Middle East. Whether he's going to continue some elements of that policy, because he needs pivot from because of the great competition and rivalry he is facing with China, and it showed it in the tariffs fight with China when he was in office during his first term in office. So for commercial reasons, commercial purposes, he needs to bring back peace, if not peace, sort of tranquility back to Middle East, so that he can put his focus and attention more on Far East. I mean China, I mean North Korea, and then come back to issues this region by way of settlement or some sort of reconciliation or decrease of tension in Middle East. So this is not only a political matter, but President-elect or next President Trump needs to bring back, as I said, peace to this region, if it can, in a way, or in order to slate some of its resources, limited resources. Resources are not open-ended. To slate some of this or direct some of these resources to the bigger problem of the competition with China, and I mean hard power and soft power, and for commercial reasons as well. A peace in Middle East can mean that it can spend more resources with other issues, as I said, China, Ukraine, and coalitions like NATO and international agreements like Paris Accord. And for that reason, I think he is interested, and his team will be focusing on Middle East, not only because Israel is a friend, but because the United States also needs to bring peace back to this region.
Touraj, you spoke there about the economic implications, the commercial concerns. We saw the markets rally based on an expectation of deregulation, of possibly lower taxation. How does the business landscape look from where you are in Tehran? Do you see possibly any opportunities for commercial, economic progress when it comes to the two countries working together in the future?
Of course, as you said, markets' reaction to President Trump's re-election was expected because he had promised lower taxes and, as you said, higher barriers to foreign trade and immigration, illegal immigration, which will be a tensions issue with Mexico, as I said. But with Iran, I don't think any opening can be made before a political rapprochement. So we need to think it this way. First, a political rapprochement, if any, then it will bring with itself any possible economic or trade ties. So in one way, it will be second to political rapprochement.
Touraj Shirililo, thank you very much for joining us from Tehran. Well, thank you for joining us tonight. Do stay with us for the very latest headlines. And from all of us here in Baku, a very good evening.